Okay, I'm going to do it like this. Now there is sound. Weirdly enough, it doesn't take the other microphones with it. There should be sound now, by the way. So this is really weird. Didn't change a thing. All days, welcome. Paolo also welcome. Rick, Mr. Pigment and Gulchen, everyone. Sylvie's also. Good evening. It's really weird. I didn't change a thing. The only thing it's doing now, it's taking my... No, that isn't Gulchen. Don't start like that. There's only this microphone. The microphone over here and the microphone in the back aren't working. They're working there. They're not working here. Every time there's something to check, but now there is sound. So since last time we talked about stroopwafels or stroopwafels, I thought it was appropriate to make it a theme thing. Yes, you read that right. That's stroopwafel stout. I'm not sponsored. I bought this myself. But you know, since some of you are enjoying beers instead of whiskeys during a stream, I thought, you know, let's pour a stroopwafel one. Old days, good to hear you finally milled paint. That's very pleasant news. Did you like it? That's probably the best question first. For everyone else, is the stream working okay? Just checking to see there's no weird things going on for others. Also, you know, this is weird enough that the sound is... I didn't change a thing over there. I didn't change anything with the connections. I was thinking I did at the 3D scanner, so... And that's good. Cheers. That's good to hear. So today I thought, you know, I still have a question mark with the pigment. Let me change this really quickly, if I can, because I figured out what kind of paint I'm going to make. Let me see if I can. That's not the right one. That is the right one. So, there we go. That side is mirrored there. Pigment PY110. Oh, that's nice. Thank you very much. I'm also going to check, since this is a very nice message. Yes, that's also still working. Why am I making this? Basically because I have a 10 kilogram bag of this pigment, and it is a very light pigment. So 10 kilograms is like, the bag is this big. It's there. Did you see what I was typing? Did you? Ah, no, you saw it. That sucks. No, you're not late, Sebastian. At 9 o'clock, I go online. 16 minutes. You've been. No, that's not true. 6 minutes with the 10 minutes countdown. I poured myself a stroopwafel stout. Since you know I'm going to join you with a beer. I haven't heard of dry January. That's just I don't know. I don't know who made that up. I hear more people talking about that lately. Yes, that's right, Miss Pigments. It isn't. So PY... 110, 110, or what we should call it, 110. And it is a good pigment. I put some in a jar, since that big bag is kind of clumsy. But I found it on Marketplace, a big bag of pigments just laying around. And I don't think I will ever run out of this pigment again. I have quite a stash of PY 153, which is lovely. But this is kind of more, I don't know, I wouldn't say more sunny. But yeah. Happy New Year, Sebastian. Yes, you weren't here last week. Mrs. She-Devils, welcome. I'm not going to make a Stroopwafel. I have one. Like, I mean, they're delicious. So I can make you a bit more jealous just with the cookie itself. This is a bit more warm, and there is less of a color difference in it. So what you have with my Indian Yellow, PY 153, the mask tone is really orange, and the wash, the transparency is... That is a weird question, Rick. The transparency is like really light and sunny, bright yellow. But Rick, since you have mentioned it, I would like to see your stash of PI 153. If that's you saying it. It might also be just a comment to make fun of me. Oh, you okay? No, I'm so sorry, Mrs. She-Devils. Yes, stroopkoek. No, I in my youth I liked stroopkoek a bit better. It was like more chewy, the more like caramelly like. But I learned to appreciate the crunch and the soft texture in these more. I will send you some, Sebastian. A new shipment from Colombia. Well, you're definitely not making fun of my stash, because it is quite a lovely stock I have. Mrs. She-Devils. Yeah, I think you're talking to Sebastian. Because I am from the Netherlands. Obviously, you know. These are very crumbly though, and I don't want to have like crumbs in my paint. I'm first going to finish this, at least the stroopwafel. After that, I'm going to make paint. So for those of you who I haven't spoken to last week, Happy New Year. I hope everyone had a great holidays. For those of you who haven't spoken yet. I'm really annoyed by this microphone not working. Or this microphone working and the others not. Hopefully the levels are alright. But yeah, I figured out you were from the Netherlands, Mr. She-Devils. Like, not a lot of people know the difference between stroopwafel and stroopkoek. So, since you said, you know, one was better, that was kind of a hint. No, YouTube, you are not overloaded. Anyway, about this color, what can I compare it with? It's really difficult. It is some companies use this as a pure Indian yellow, so a pure Indian yellow hue. Some people use this in a mix. Wafers are a different thing. I know they look a lot like it. But I really think that's a different thing. Sebastian, it really depends if you want to send me biltong. Since I can just read this, it's really funny. You know what? You mean like the beef jerky thing, like the dried, or? I think most supermarkets have them, Gulchen. And if I'm right, I've just looked up the most ugly picture of it, but I think it's kind of clear that I think these are the ones you're talking about, right? If it's beef jerky but 100 times better, yes, please send me some. I will send you enough of these. All days. Don't read. Listen to my videos. I never use 2-on-1 when it comes to binder pigment. I always start 1-on-1 with some pigments. It could use a little bit more. Some pigments, especially micas, use less. So a 1-on-1 is a great kind of midway start. But yeah. I would never do 2-on-1. Okay, should be back again, but it's really annoying. So I'm putting, I'll put my audio mixer now in my screen so I can actually see what is active. And I'm really annoyed that that thing is not active. I don't know why it isn't either. It's really frustrating actually. Really, really frustrating. I don't know, it might have been an update. What I've done now, luckily this microphone is quite a good one. I'm quite happy with it. What this does is it saves all the settings from the software in the microphone. It has a little soundboard in it. So yeah, it's connected directly with USB to my computer. But apparently the mixing software, which makes, I can actually close that now, since it's not of any use to us. The mixing software usually works in this as a source, and I can just add this microphone, the microphone over there, and the microphone over there. But I see there's actually a red light here. Isn't that? No, we're not. We are not. This is not. Wait, one moment, please. Is it happening? Is it work? It is working, isn't it? Oh my god. Okay, so there's nothing going on. Sound works again. But since I've been moving cables for my 3D scanner, which is over here, I'll show it to you in a minute, I accidentally pressed a button on the bottom of my microphone, which completely muted everything, which is good to know, because that's new for me. It's actually working now, so I also have sound over here, and now I have sound over here as well. And hopefully it also sounds alright. It's annoying. Okay, we're almost 20 minutes in. Let's start making some paint. So, as the caption says, we are just making a little bit. This is quite a light pigment. Really depends on the pigment though with oil. Usually a higher pigment load is possible in oils. But it's really hard. It takes a long time to mill. It's really hard to incorporate that much of pigment. It needs to be fully mixed. Let me just get rid of the microphone there. And the mixing in oil and the mixing in pigment is just a completely different world. So since we're working with a hydrophobic pigment, I can actually just use my muller for it. Which muller shall I use? I'm just going to let the chat decide. Sebastian, how is the 3-roll mill doing? It's doing great, actually. Still need to make a final decision. Don't have the funds yet, but I actually think I'm going to do it, and there's like 2 reasons for it. One, I think that's the kind of only way I can scale up, and 2, this is actually a little bit less of a good start of the year. I think 2-3 days ago, I started feeling my shoulder again. And I called the doctors today to make an appointment at a hospital. And I can only make an appointment. I can only have like another look at it 6 weeks after the first injection. And that's been like a month ago. So still need to wait for 2 weeks to actually have an injection, or if it's necessary. The other thing is the waiting lists to go to radiology and have a look at it is more than 6 weeks from now on. So I'm going to take it really easy with my hand, and obviously, you know, everyone asks for the heaviest muller, so thank you very much for that. It's not just shoulder pains, Sebastian. It's like it was under ultrasound, and they looked at it under ultrasound, and they put the injection in it under ultrasound, and I actually saw the inflammation in my joint. Like I could see it. Like you have the socket of your shoulder. I could literally see like a thick plaque of stuff that shouldn't be there, which was like a completely different shade of grey than the rest of the ultrasound was. So I can actually see like there's something in between there, and that's exactly what where the injection went. So I think it's really interesting to see, you know, those kind of medical stuff for myself. It is a painful injection, though. Mark, welcome. What a way to enter bursitis. Yes. I don't know if you've said anything before. Giefel, welcome as well. I missed your evening all. I'm just scrolling back a little bit through the chats, just to see if I've missed anyone else. Only curious to not use it at all. I can't. I literally can't. Like not using it at all. Like just having. I had like a numb arm for 2 weeks. I couldn't lift the weight of my own arm. And I noticed that made it a lot worse, not moving it at all. It also made it sore, and it made it stiff, and yeah. So it's or keeping it warm, or keeping like there's nothing that really helps. It's just something that needs to get away. Ah, that's nice, Gulchen. How was it? Good that you got the notification, Mark. To be honest, Gulchen, I haven't seen the first two yet. I wanted to, and then they were off the streaming services. Now they're on again, so I really need to check it out. Thanks, Mrs. She-Devil. Can I call you just She-Devil or Mrs.? Or Mrs. sounds a bit weird, maybe, but Mrs. She-Devil. Mrs. She-Devil's Art Creations. That's also fine if you want me to call you by your full name. Mil, I don't know if that's the way you pronounce it. Is it Mil, Miel? How do you pronounce it? Welcome. Yes, this is a basically what you're describing, although primary yellow. What kind of yellow is it? It's not. I'm not making a joke, but it's like it's a bit fake for me. I'm using yellow ochre in dirty blue, my signature mix, and the wonderful thing is that they separate. Ochre sinks down faster than ultramarine, but there are some particles of ultramarine that sink down with it, which gives it a granulating texture, but also a separating texture, because the yellow sinks down and the blue kind of wanders around. So the separating part, what you're talking about, is probably the ultramarine blue granulating and breaking the mix. So if you're using a different blue, for instance a phthalo blue, what doesn't granulate at all, you might solve it. I hope that answered your questions, Miel. So basically, to answer this, it's a pigment thing. And it's a blue pigment thing, it's not the yellow. So I made a short that it's not gout, Sebastian. PY74. Okay, yeah, no, it's definitely the blue. What was I saying, Sebastian? You said it's not gout, and so I don't know. I was thinking things, and I'm just reading back. It's basically it's ultramarine blue. Oh yeah, there you go. My latest short shows me using green, violet, and orange to make red, yellow, and blue. It's possible. It's not like a deep red, a perfect blue, and a bright yellow, but they're definitely blue. They're definitely yellow, and they're definitely red. The red, though, I've used PV14 in that video, which is the most crazy granulating pigment, and also not a really good mixer. So what you get is just it falls apart a bit, the mix. Miel, yes, also very good that you mentioned that. It has to do with the weight. PBR7, basically no matter what, but PBR7 is a heavy pigment as well, and sometimes a granulating pigment. So the weight of the pigments plays a role, whereas the yellow is lighter, or I said sinks down quicker, but that's, you know, when you're talking about gravitation, by gravity with pigments, it's a bit off. The yellow is finer and gets absorbed quicker in the paper, whereas the blue kind of sinks in agglomerates as a granulating paint, and, you know, makes the mix a little bit weird. Whereas PBR7 and PB29 are more equal to each other in that regard. So I'm just spraying water on it to make it a little bit easier for me, since this technique, what I'm using, for those of you who are new here, why am I leaving dry pigment in the middle and already kind of mulling on the side? I'm not mulling it yet, I'm just wetting the pigment. So slowly adding a little bit of pigment each time I go past it to make it not fly around. It's a very light pigment. It's also a hydrophobic pigment, a little bit hydrophobic, not the worst one. Miel, that's why I'm here. It's my pleasure. But if you feel the urge to give a super chat, you know, oh, that's completely fine. I'm joking. I'm happy to help. So, like I said, it's not the worst hydrophobic pigment. What a timing, old days, what the most hydrophobic pigment is. There's different kinds of hydrophobic. It sounds weird because hydrophobic actually just one meaning. There's hydrophobic that, you know, really mixes hard with water and lumps together in little lumps of pigment that stick underneath your muller. And there's hydrophobic with pigment that is very light and just flies everywhere because it doesn't just want to touch my water-based binder. And in that case, it would be phthalo pigments. Phthalo. I've most issue with phthalo blue-green shade, I think. I wanted to say green. PG7. I think when I'm just looking at, you know, what colors what color my hands are when I've mulled, you know, those pigments, I think they're more often blue than they are green when it comes to hydrophobic pigments. Miel, you are not a YouTube streams. You're more of a Twitch person. I have been thinking, I've been discussing it during this stream as well. Shall I also do Twitch, like stream 2 places at once? When I was talking about that, YouTube just went nuts and you know, gave me like such bad lagging in my stream that yeah. But for me, YouTube was like the more obvious choice because I wanted to make long form videos about, you know, educating people making paint and working with pigments and about pigments. And, you know, for this is the perfect place for it. So YouTube was like the more obvious thing. Also, sometimes the chat, like, there's only 12 of you right now, but sometimes the chat is quite busy. And that's a really good thing. But I want to give everyone as much attention as possible. I'm really afraid if I put Twitch in this stream in the chat as well, for me, I don't know. I don't think Twitch is like, there's loads of platforms. I've tried TikTok Live, and it only just reaches my followers, which I'm not interested in that, but it's also not a really good place for the long form thing. Instagram Live, just Instagram. And to be really honest, I'm making a few cents with YouTube. Like, I'm just putting my focus here. That's I think the best way to go for me right now. Back to paint. So what you see, you know someone who does both art and paint making on Twitch and they're doing fine. Who is it? If you want to share that with me, otherwise that's also fine. I'm just wondering. I've set up a Twitch. I mean, I have like the Dirty Blue Shop is my account. So I've set it up. It's like ready. So this is like, I think PY153 is nickel dioxin yellow. Kind of feels similar to this. It is hydrophobic, but once it mixes, it's beautiful and, you know, a smooth paint. But that's one of those hydrophobic paints that lump together. But watch out, they are French. They can be lovely people, nothing to watch out for. Miel, I don't know if you're French as well. No offense there. turn these things on over here. Connect the spectrometer. You don't bite. I mean, you're probably the first French person. That's not true. That's not. I'm going to take it back before I said it. I want to say you're probably the first French person to speak English to me. But then again, you're just typing, so now that's. I've been on holidays to France a few times, and I've talked about this. I think last stream even. I'm trying really hard as a good Dutch person. I'm trying really hard to remember the right sentences to get around enough for a holiday. But sometimes that's just not enough. And I don't know, whatever happens then, it's just trying to speak English. And maybe sometimes, I've had this in several countries in Europe, by the way. People just either don't help you anymore, or don't want to speak English, or start to be really annoyed. No, but I love France as a country, as a language. I was last stream I was talking about it. Me cheating my French oral exam. Yeah, that was the last one, I think. Okay, so for me, this feels like it's getting very smooth and almost there. Still love this Muller. You can definitely do that, Missy, but you will completely change the rest of what your paint behaves like. So if you're using it just, and if you don't mind it flowing a lot on your paper, working wet and wet, that's fine. If you're making paint out of it for selling, it means that everyone using that paint will also have paint that flows a lot. So I use a little bit of Oxgall, and it's literally just a few drops for each batch of binder, just because I like, the same with honey, I like how it made my paint flows. I like how it feels, how it acts. But just enough to change the feeling of my paint and not to influence the characteristics of the pigment. And that is a very important thing. If you have hydrophobic pigments, they will lose like the granulation. Hydrophobic, I'm just reading and talking. I need to scroll down, I see. If you're using granulating pigments, you're losing the entire texture of that granulation because of the Oxgall. It makes it just, especially wet on wets, instead of it sinking around and creating little, like the grainy texture it has, it just flows like one solid piece of wash, for instance. So yes, you can use it, and it will influence how your paint acts like and feels like entirely. So for me, I'm not following the chat at all. I just scroll down and I'm just fully out of context. But for me, this feels like a really smooth paint with the right consistency. Obviously, I'm going to check it. I need to get my Stroopwafels out of the way over here. And that as well. I really thanks Gulchen for that context, but I really need to read back because I was. Thank you, Sentient. It is. I just read like it's 100% no Toy Story, and the beige period circa 79 was the dullest part. That's my context. So your context of volunteering at a local museum doesn't help. I need to scroll up. Oh, it's about 70 stuff. Okay. Well, Miel, I think I don't know how old you are, obviously, but thank you for joining the chat. Especially since, you know, if I just read this, I would have been completely lost, but I got the context now, so that's... Okay, so that's a very good question. I feel my shoulder again. This is not good. This is not good. I want to... That sucks. Let's hope drinking helps. No, that's a bad example. Don't take an example out of that. I'm taking it back. Drinking water I was talking about. So, a very good question. With hydrophobic ones, I'm just going to highlight it again. Oh, there you go. With hydrophobic ones, how do you know or can check when the paint is mold enough after the whole pigment is covered already, including the middle? Okay, so how can you check that? A few things. What you saw me do is clean the muller, and if it goes like, I'm just going to show you here, like making it a little bit dirty like this, spreading it out. If it cleans up like this, and it just goes on smooth on your palette knife, like the smooth paint it is right now, you're quite close. If you still kind of see specks of pigment, what happens with hydrophobic ones, a lot actually, you're not there yet. Also, what you also see me doing is kind of, if you see me scraping the paint, I'm not just scraping it very well, because, you know, I'm quite skilled at this. I'm not just scraping it off my plate. I'm also checking what this thing does as well. So I'm just going to show you a beautiful swipe over here, which basically goes to around 3-ish. Maybe I should buy a 51. Don't have the money for it now. Don't need it. But it might be good to actually just buy this in this length. It's a little bit more precise. But this is basically a very nicely milled paint. I don't see any specks, although you do see some lines over there, but that's just a swipey thing. So it feels like a smooth paint. It's not too runny. It's smooth. It has a nice shine to it. So yeah, I like this. Thank you, Gulchen. Pen time. I'm ignoring the kinky stuff from Rick. Or at least I'm ignoring that Paolo thinks Rick sounds kind of kinky. There we go. PY. Let me have a look if I actually have the pens. really. I did print them though. So, as always, pans with the pigment number in them. There you go. Like it's masked on it really looks like an orange on the camera, which is not quite. It's like a little bit more orange. That camera is definitely too warm, but it's really similar to PY153 as well when it comes to that aspect. Although I think PY153 dries a little bit more orange than it is like a warmer yellow. But that's, you know, you see the over there you see the pens, and over there you see the pens. It's a little bit in between. That's a little bit too bright. That's a little bit that's too orange. Yes and no, Missy. You are right, but that is mostly useful to see if your binder pigment proportions are right. Because there are some pigments that actually paint out really nice and stay on the paper, or they don't paint out perfectly, not ideal, not like in the way it could be, but they still stick on the paper, and that's mostly with finer pigments. So I will show it to. I just scraped off all my paint. I've explained it a lot in different videos. Okay, I will just quickly show it to you here. I'm just going to empty the pen. Not wasting the pen. So if this is your milled paint, and just showing you, you know, what I do without waiting to dry, because you don't want to wait to you know, your paint to dry on a piece of paper when you're mulling. You want to check it and mull it anymore if it needs to be mulled anymore. So basically what this thing does over here, the Heckman gauge, it just shows you a line where it gradually goes thinner towards nothing, right? There's no space here in between, to see if there's any specks like sticking out and leaving a line. So a miniature version of that is just doing this. That's all. So what happens, I've just created a line from nothing to milestone here, really, really thinly, really small, but this is basically exactly the same as this, just smaller. Here, if you look closely to your daily tasks to perform. Good luck, Rick. See you next time. Thanks for joining. So what you see here, and I know these colors are fully off because my iPhone just, you know, entered the chat and it's just didn't wake up yet. So it doesn't want to focus, but here you can see it a little bit better. That's the line I'm talking about, right? So that's kind of my trick for if you don't have a Heckman gauge, you can try this, because it just happens with the tools that you have on, you know, the surface you're working on. So there's no need to do anything else. Or no need for cleaning more things than necessary. Although, you know, swatching is always a good idea. Speaking of, let me get a good brush as well. Did I have one over here? Don't think I did. And to be honest, that kind of trick with your palette knife, I'm doing that while I scrape everything off the plate. While I'm doing this, I'm now looking at the camera, but while I'm doing this, I'm also always looking at how it kind of flows over the slab to check for any, not impurities, but to check for any particles. Mostly needed with coarser earth pigments or mineral pigments. So with hydrophobic pigments, all days to come back to you. How do you know you have molded for long enough? Two things. What Missy said, swatch it, let it dry, rub it over with your finger or a paper towel. If it rubs off the paper, you need more binder, or you need to mold a little bit longer. It's sometimes possible, but not very often in my experience. And do that check with the palette knife to see if there's any particles that aren't dispersed into your paint. There you go. It looks like fully orange when I do it like this. It's too bright for the camera. I'm letting this dry. I'm going to read it with the spectrometer. Luckily, I have a little heater over there and it dries quite quickly. Because it's getting colder, guys. I don't know if that's the case for everyone. I don't think it is, knowing where some of you are from. But here it is getting quite a bit colder. Looks like your Copic marker called Honey. Well, I can fully get that. I imagine this would be like the same color that... can I say Winnie the Pooh? I probably can. This looks like the same color as the honey there. Miel, thanks for joining. Hopefully see you next time. I'm here every Wednesday evening at 9 for you, same time in France. So yeah, hope to see you next time. Thanks for joining. What's the minimum mulling time? Can't answer that. Literally can't. It's not that I don't want to. It's 13 degrees there, Paula. Wow. It's way better than here. I don't know what it is here right now. Can I see it? Yes, I can. Need to get rid of some. It's 2 degrees right now here. So all days, what's the minimum mulling time? Like I said, I can't tell. Sometimes you don't need mulling at all. And it's not only for mica pigments, which you, in my opinion, shouldn't mull at all. It is very satisfying to see. But for me, it just doesn't make sense. But I think I've explained that. Otherwise, I will explain it later or maybe another time. Sometimes pigments just kind of melt into your binder. Some cobalts just kind of melt into your binder and there's almost no mulling needed, or it's very hard for me, for instance, for Yinmin blue. I know that's not a cobalt pigment, but very similar in mixing properties when it comes to mixing with the binder. When I use my palette knife and when I'm wetting the pigment, I almost see no difference before mulling and after mulling. Not in color, not in how it kind of flows, or nothing. So it's mulling time will be kind of minimum. I'm doing it just because I want to make sure I get the most saturation out of my pigment and the best possible dispersion. But I don't think I want to say I don't think you will see you might see a little bit of a difference, but it's barely visible. I know that, especially on Reddit, some people have been complaining that they were mulling for hours and still, didn't get the paint they wanted. That might not be the paint's faults. So if that's an issue you're running into, I still love that this is crystal. It sings. If that's a problem you're running into, it's actually, I think it could be solved by using just more pressure on your paint. Don't be scared. You're not getting an inflammation because of mulling. This is just because of, moving my studio and everything going on. It's that plus trying to, do a little bit too much for me, just probably did it, right? It's not because of this movement or any downward pressure, for that instance, is going to do damage to you. Downward pressure and or a heavier muller, and probably Sylvie can confirm this if she's still here. A heavier muller works wonders. Just, it works wonders. It does the work for you, right? The downward pressure, gravity, it does it for you. With more downward pressure, you need less mulling time. It's basically, if it's all wetted, right? That's a very important factor. Okay, 2 questions. What pigment took me longer to mill than other pigments? Hydrophobic ones always take longer. I think the most difficult one for me, in the amount I wanted to make, was PB60 and Thraquinone blue. And it wasn't even the wetting part, but once it was wet, it really needed a lot of mulling. It was a very light, very hydrophobic, but very light pigment. And I had like the same amount that I usually have with a phthalo or anything, but it needed much more water, and that's an answer on your second question. I'll get to that later. Whereas because of that, the volume of the paint, like a very thin paint, got more. It needed more mulling, it needed more water because of that. I actually needed to make the same amount in 3 batches. I scooped it off my slab, and I made it in 3 batches. So, you know, that combined, that took me longest. Let me just get back to the Stroopwafel view. To answer your second question, isn't the heavy muller harder to use? This is like an extreme comparison, though, but like a regular sized muller, to call it like that. This is also lead crystal, right? So there's a 25% lead content in it, which makes it a lot heavier than regular glass. Use more water. Once this is on your slab and it gets like dry and too sticky, it's really hard, but that is hard for every muller. When you just have enough of flow going on, which, you know, water helps with, it's really easy to work with, actually. Sentient, thank you very much for joining. Hopefully see you next time again. I think I'm not making it very late today. Missy, you asked where I got the muller I'm using today. I actually have a video how it's made and by whom it's made. It's the PB33 manganese blue video, and you know, with my new muller. But to answer you, it's made by Thomas Petit, not French, not Petit, but Petit, handmade muller with crystal glass. Sylvie's watercolor. Sylvie, who joined the chat earlier, but I don't know if she's still here. She has its sibling. He made 2 versions. I actually preferred this design. The first one that he made wasn't completely up to that, and the second one, this one, was. Sylvie was able to get that one. And why is this like a special one? Because this color scheme, the white, he doesn't make that regularly, or he doesn't offer it in a shop at all. I asked for white because I want to see if there's any pigment on my muller. I can also see it if I look down. If there's like any color left. And as you can see, like, it is heavy, but it moves beautifully. This is just a dry slab. Right, so this is great. Why? Because I want to see if there's like any color shining through and making my muller, you know, a different color. If there's like a red speck here, I can actually see it everywhere around the muller. I can see the red reflecting. With white, that's not the case. He offers a lot of colors, but, you know, white was the obvious choice for me, so I asked him if he could do that. How heavy is the muller? 1.5 kilograms, I think. 1.4, 1.5 kilograms. Which is, I have my biggest muller before that, or my heaviest muller. I should just say heaviest muller. Was this one, and looking like at the side profile, you see why this one is heavy. But looking at it fully flat like this, this obvious. This diameter it's obviously bigger. You would still say, seeing like this is like the same height, kind of ish, almost the same height. This is even a little bit higher. This is way thicker. It is bigger over here. Yeah, this is heavier. This is regular glass. This is crystal lead containing glass. so lead crystal. And you can not only feel it, but you can also need to use something else because this going to use a measuring spoon. Actually hurts my ears. That's a lot of difference. Not for the people who can't hear high tones anymore, but this sings. During cleaning, this sings as crystal does. This is just glass. Or even if I hold it with 2 fingers, it is not like, it's obviously a lighter sound, but that's just still very flat comparing holding this with 2 fingers. This just sounds like an instrument. All right, so this is a very weird fascination when it comes to mullers. This is beautiful to use. It's also, you can kind of feel how this sounds while using it. It sounds a bit weird maybe, but obviously there's some like vibration going on while mulling it. You have the resistance of the plate, you have the resistance of the frosted bottom, and you can just feel it in the resistance, in that resistance you have between the pigment and the slab and the muller. You can feel it here as well. Did I have cases where pigments went insoluble? All the time, literally with every pigment, because pigments aren't soluble. I'm sorry, that's mean of me. I know what you mean though. You need to soak your salted cod. I don't know who sounds kinky. No, I'm sorry. You go red and work on your dinner, or yeah, probably dinner, right? Isn't it? Food, Paolo. Sorry about my comments. What was I saying? Insoluble. Yeah, pigments aren't insoluble ever. They disperse. But I know what you mean. And basically every solid pigment, every particle that is small enough can be used to make into paint. Should you? No, I wouldn't. But it's possible. So that's why people over the years, over the centuries, millennia even, have tried every known gemstone mineral in the earth, crushing it and seeing if it can give us a color to use in, I would say art, but to use in culture, communication. Basically how the art we know now has started. And if you grind it small enough, you can incorporate it into a binder, whether that is glue, resin, oil, gum arabic, that's the resin, but water soluble, egg. Everything can be turned into a pigment. Is a bit extreme to say, but it kind of comes down to it. There are things though that will dissolve into water. That's not a pigment, that's a dye. That's the difference between the two of them. Also, pigment is more light fast than a dye, but not always. There are some pigments that are less light fast than some laked pigments, dyes. Should be careful there. Missy, thank you. Have a great evening, rest of the evening, and have a good night. Thanks for joining. Glad to have met you here. It's always good to see new faces or usernames. So thanks for joining. Hope to see you next time. To answer your question, all days, what is the one I have most issues with? I think that's dragon's blood. for a very specific reason. The way I make dragon's blood is I'm not making a lake out of it. I'm not laking the pigment. I'm using the resin as is, and I think that I don't want to say I'm the only one doing that, but I don't think it's a very usual thing to do. So what I'm doing, I'm crushing the resin, which comes from the Dracaena trees. I'm crushing that into a very fine powder, usually in a pestle and mortar. Not using alcohol with this. Never, and I want to warn everyone for this, never use alcohol with your dragon's blood resin or pigment. Especially or when you want to make paint out of it. When you want to make ink out of it, you know, go ahead, have a party. Don't let that stuff touch your muller or slab if you do use alcohol with it. The resin will dissolve in the alcohol. That will literally just dissolve in the alcohol, and the alcohol will evaporate, and it will leave a sticky, solid, gluey mess that just sticks everything together and only dissolves again when you add alcohol. There's like nothing you can do with that after. So don't try it. Don't ruin your stuff. I've tried it in a plastic cup, luckily. It's terrible. I set it on fire for my video, by the way, the dragon's blood video. It is very smelly. Some people use it as incense, but when you grind it, it's a really smelly and it's a pungent and harsh smell for your nose. And I have quite sensitive nose. It is not a very pleasant thing to work with. Your studio, your room, wherever you work will be smelly for at least a day. And it's not a very pleasant smell as well. It's not like incense, like what you might be used to it. Think of it when you talk about incense. It's like, I don't like it. It smells like bandit. Yes and no. I think yeah, you might be on like the right track there. If you could make an extract out of band-aids and fully plunge yourself into the extract, yes, then yeah. But it sticks around way longer. It's terrible. It will stain Gulchen. It will stain. When you put alcohol, no, it won't. It's not that it stains and ruins your stuff. It's like using pine resin, out of pine trees or pine cones. The resin that is in that, if that sticks to your hand, it's really hard to get off. You need to use a special kind of soap or it's really hard to get off. That's the kind of hard to get off, but then with glass, it's terrible. You were told PV14 would go insoluble. I think people are talking about some PV14s. I haven't had that with my cobalt violet, but some PV14s are really hard to re-wet. Maybe it's that. I don't know. Really depends on the indigo, Mr. Pigments. I have loads of different indigos. Some are way more smelly than others. I have a synthetic indigo that's more smelly than a natural indigo, but no, the most smelly indigo I have is a natural one. It's not as bad as Tyrian purple as a dye. Purpurism is less smelly. Obviously, it's a laked version, but Tyrian purple is like the harshness of indigo, and a really smelly indigo that is like almost musky, rottenish kind of smell to it, but a natural plant-based smell. Tyrian purple as a powder. It's a dye, but as a powder, has that rotten quality, but in a living organism, like not a plant, but in a creature, a dead creature, rotten stench to it. Oh no, this is still plant-based. Maybe some of you have had this left a bucket in the garden for way too long, and there was sun on it, and it standed for way too long, and there was kind of like algae and everything, and then you want to throw it out, and actually everything that settled on the bottom got rotten. That harsh smell, but then yes, Paolo with a hint of shellfish. So that settled down rotten thing in on the bottom of your bucket. I don't know if I've had this a couple of times, like especially cleaning up the toys for my kids at the garden, playing with water and dirt and buckets and everything and you're kind of at the end of the year, at the end of the summer, you're cleaning up the garden and making everything, putting all the toys back together and moving everything around and emptying everything, and then that harsh stench. I've had that a couple of times. Also, when I forgot just that a bucket with water next to the barbecue. It got living things in it, and it was like its own ecosystems. I emptied that onto the grass, and that was so horrible. It was really horrible, but it's that kind of. I'm sorry, I'm going way too long about buckets now. That kind of stench. If you know what I'm talking about, if you don't know what I'm talking about, the last 2 minutes were just completely rubbish for you. I'm sorry about that. If you do know what I'm talking about, you know kind of what kind of feel Tyrian purple gives you. Thank you. And yes, I'm just trying to explain what a pigment I have smells like. What? Let's just continue. That's very good. What PV14 do you use or recommend? That's a really hard question. I really like Schwinker's version. Was it Schwinker, by the way? I need to check that. I think Kramer has a good one as well. But for the cobalts, it's really hard to notice differences with, especially my PV14s, I think. I suspect they all come from the same manufacturer. And that's not something like I got written on paper. That's not something I have any proof of. It is just, it feels the same. It looks the same. It's exactly the same color. So it's really hard for me to say which version is best. I haven't come across a PV14 I wouldn't use anymore. I think that's probably a better answer. Just straightening the paper since it kind of curled up a bit during the drying. Let's get to, it needs a calibration. Let me just quickly get the calibrating tool. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, all they're handmade, like some people making them themselves, but that's not something you would buy at your regular pigment place. I just need to quickly calibrate the NYX spectrometer. that is calibrated. Let me show you what this looks like over here. And we're clicking to measure. Yeah, undefined, that's good. Get rid of that and looking at this. So getting rid of me. And this is the lovely PY110. So from 580, no, that's not true, 600 nanometers in wavelengths, it's just a straight, flat, horizontal line. Anything before 460 is really small. It's like, I can just look over here. Anything before 460 is kind of a straight line as well. So you see that it is mostly absorbs everything blue to violet, ultraviolet, and it reflects everything from yellow on to red and near infrared wavelengths. So how does this compare to PY153? I'm just going to quickly have a look if I can find that. I have some yellows here. I was afraid of that. Not all of them. Let me quickly have a look through it. This is, by the way, this is what my dragon's blood looks like. And it has this texture in it. That is because I didn't use a laked pigment, but that's because I grinded up the resin. And I really like what this does as a texture, as a paint. Like Gulchen said, by the way, it's not light fast. Not fully light fast. Or not at all. But I really like the quality to this. It's like a weird textural thing it has. It's not granulating. It's something. It's the resin, obviously, but PY153. Come on, PY150, which is also used as an Indian yellow substitute. PY154. I should say we're almost there, and then there's nothing. Did I leave that somewhere else? Can't imagine I did. Just going to look everything. Going to search for it. I could just go to artistpigments.org, but I don't know if he has swatched PY153. Probably has, but it's still interesting to see for myself. PY153, there you go. Okay, so I have loads of things in front of me here right now. Let me just share that with you. I have here PY110. Then I have P150, PY227, because it's a warm yellow, so it's very opaque, but it's a warm yellow as well. PY153. So let's do some comparison, and still we can't compare anything here. I need to contact them. So this is 153. As you can see, definitely not. Can we measure it with maybe? No, there's no button for measuring, is it? Measure. Tools, calculator. What? CMYK calculator. click to measure. Oh, well, this is interesting. Hello. Sorry, I need to share my screen. These one look, yeah, let me have a look if I can. This one is like that has that more of a brightness to it than this one. This is more flat. But yeah, I agree. Camera has a hard time seeing the difference. This is a PY153 in this case, but this is PY153 on a graph. Let me quickly show you PY110 next to it, or instead of it. So the curve is a lot steeper here. Going to measure PY153 again. There you go. So this one goes a little bit down more. This one is straight from 600 as well. And this one goes down from 460, whereas the other one is more flat. So I'm going to measure 110 again. There you go. And now I'm going to compare it to PY150. So that's a completely different curve. There's no flat line from 600 on. So there's a slow curve from 460 quickly going up to, I would say, 500 nanometers. Then it gets less steep and like more curved towards infrared, near infrared wavelengths. Going to also do PY227 here. Flat line from 200, 460, it goes down. This is PY227, right? Look at the difference between that and PY153. Almost no difference. PY153 is a little bit brighter. So the camera is absolutely right as well. There's a little bit of a difference. The line is a little bit higher. There's a little bit of bump here. But otherwise, these two are actually very similar, although PY2227 is a quite grainy, more granular pigment. It has more texture to it. Plus it's opaque, whereas this one is like orange in mass tone, bright yellow in its washes, has more vividness to it, if I can say that. Mr. Pigments, yeah, it doesn't have to be suspicious. I've had several pigments, like 100-gram samples of pigments from Chinese companies, to just compare them with the stuff that I could get in Europe or from the US. So I wouldn't say that's suspicious at all, actually. If you just ask him, I know some of them are happy to send you 100-gram samples as well. For some, I actually, but that's I had a better relationship with that company. I only needed to pay for shipping, for instance. And that's because for one of those pigments, that is kind of my main pigment to choose, because I like the intensity of the pigment a little bit better than the European version that I had, or at least than the one that I bought in Europe. I don't know what their supplier is. So yeah, I wouldn't think about that too much. If I were buy it, if you need 1 kilogram, otherwise ask for less, and try it. All right, you find out if it's real soon enough then. Let me quickly have a look if I can. Paolo, yeah, I agree with you. I wish I could superimpose these on my computer as well. I'm going to ask them because their mobile app does it. You can actually compare at least two pigments. You see the line and the differences in that line. So yeah. $100 is, for me. I think $100 with shipping is a lot. If it's for 1 kilogram, especially when you want to know a company and when you haven't tried it before, so you want to sample it. For me, it is a lot. Paolo, it is. Yeah, you can export everything as a CSV. Yeah. So all my data I have from my mobile app, at least from my library of my own paints. Let me have a look. I can show that to you probably. Let's go to artistpigments.org. Need to log in. Let me also share that with you. Not the logging in part though, but visualize your colors. So these are the colors I have. These are all readings I have exported from my readings of my own paint, and these are all readings plotted into a pigment color circle, a hue circle, I should say that. Which is a tool on artistpigment.org if you log in, if you have an account. And the neat thing about this is I can actually compare mine to, let's say, Schminke. If they are watercolor, there you go. Why Schminke? Because they are the only professional brand that also pull their pens in a way that I know of, at least. And yes, you want to compare them with this. Let's tick that box. And you see all the Schminke ones with the A and mine without the A. So you can actually compare like their cobalt violet or manganese violet. This is their brilliant. This is their PV55. This is my cobalt violet. What is this? For me, this is my Quin violet. So this is PV55 for me. This is PV55 from them. This is manganese violet for me. So there's loads of like opera pink probably, right? It's a little bit small. Yeah, opera rose. That's let me just get this over here. And English. Which one was it you were looking for? Was it PV50 14? Light, probably. I don't know. For a kilogram, that's $2.95 for me. Oh, why is it doing this? Why is it doing that? That was weird. So there's also, apart from the differences in where you can get it cheaper versus where you're from or where you're located and where it needs to go, it also makes a lot of difference sometimes. Especially, Kramer is a German company. So thinking that they need to import from, for instance, China, and they need to sell it, they need to kind of make it twice as expensive as they buy it for, to not lose any money out of it because of taxes. So they need to add more money to actually make a profit out of it. So that's basically, you know, how all products work. And then need to ship it to the US and have export taxes and import things and, you know, all these things. It makes it really expensive, yeah. To be honest, for those pigments, I'm not really sure why Guerra is that expensive, especially dry pigments. Guys, it's been an hour and 45 minutes, 40 minutes ish. Mr. Pigments, I think, looking at what I've heard on the news and such, that it's going to be more expensive for you from a few days on. Way more expensive. And it's not a funny thing for you. It's just so stupid that I can't wrap my head around it. Anyway, I'm going again, I think. I'm getting a little bit tired, and I can start something new, but I'm afraid I'm getting really messy then. So I'm not going to do that. To be honest, like I know, Mr. Pigments, we've talked about pigment prices, especially also from Guerra before in private, and the way that prices have risen for pigments. Like we're talking, not even talking raw materials, but just for pigments as the raw material I'm using. That's just crazy. That's just so weird. Some things have doubled or tripled even in price. I can't compete with the big companies when it comes to the price of, you know, me buying small amount of pigments. I'm not using enough for the bulk amounts that have like the price reduction. So it's, you know, I don't have a stock of many pigments though. I still want to see Rick's stash of PY153. That's something for another time. Thank you everyone. Thank you very much for joining the chat. Thank you very much for joining the stream. Hope to see you next Wednesday. Maybe I'll be online again Friday morning. I'm not quite sure. Tomorrow not. I'll be quite busy tomorrow. Otherwise, it will be next week Wednesday again. So hopefully see you then. Everyone have a good day, a good night wherever you are, and I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the day. Thanks for joining everyone, and hopefully see you next time.